Hi and welcome to another episode, and what we've got here is the Sinclair 128K ZX Spectrum Plus 2. Needs a bit of a fix up if I do anything with it. But basically you can tell it's the Plus 2 because it's got the tape deck on it, and it's the grey version because the Plus 2A and the Plus 2B are actually black, and the easiest way to spot that, even if this type has been taken in a dark picture, is that the legends for the keys are actually across the top here. An easy one to figure that one out. But as you can see, this is the grey version. This is sort of its nickname, understandably. But let's have a look at this, because I purchased this because I wanted to put some interfaces in at the back, and not blow up my Spectrum next if it turned out there's something wrong with those interfaces. Now the problem is, turns out this wonderful Spectrum Plus 2 isn't going to be as cheap as I thought it would be, because, well, I first turned it on, it seemed to work, and then I started loading a tape and it was all going fine, and then it was not going so fine, so I had to press the reset button, and I pressed the reset button and this happened. And quite frankly, it's getting worse every time I plug it in. Now those sort of white stripes and stuff like that, that's supposedly a hint towards there's a problem in the memory. I will put a link to a website down below that actually has like lots of different versions of this sort of stuff, from like the early versions of the Spectrums to the later versions, and you get an idea of what people have had to do to fix said problems. Now I'm going to kill the power before anything else starts going wrong with it. Hopefully I haven't killed anything else off. I'll completely unplug everything. Let's turn off the OSSC as well. Now I've already taken out the screws, got them hiding up in the corner here. Just to let you know though, there is 6 of them, 2 over here, 2 in the middle roughly, and 2 at the other side. These holes are supposed to be for some feet. Dear me, it seems this Spectrum Plus 2's had a bit of a rough life, it seems, which you wouldn't have noticed from where I purchased it from. Now there's the edge connector and then the odd ports and everything, but we don't need to worry about right now, because what we're interested in is trying to fix this wonderful little machine. Little, it's not as big as a CPC 464, is it? I mean, that'd be off the screen somewhere over here, but yeah, because obviously I'm joking about that because the Amstrad took over Sinclair when he made these ones. Now to get inside, obviously, is under those 6 screws. Then you put it on its base again and you lift up from the top, and you gingerly lift up and you sort of rest it at this angle. Now I'm going to do it at this angle for you because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. I can't move my camera around, I've only got a finite amount of space. Right, so we've got this cable here that we need to pull out. It's quite firm, but you know, it's not like you have to yank it, so try to hold the plug rather than the wires. And you can see over here there's some other fun stuff that's connected. Now I will actually lay this back down again because it'll be easy for me to do, and since I've undone the tape deck, because that's what that plug was, so the power and the information for the tape deck, I can get to here. So I recommend that the left hand side of the case you rest on the bottom side of the case, because otherwise there isn't an awful lot of this ribbon cable. This is obviously for the keyboard, so we pull them out by firmly holding the plasticky bits on both sides and pull up, and then that's that we've got that out of the way. As I said before, this was actually made by Amstrad. So there's the tape deck mechanisms, and you can see there's some rubber bands, and you'll see a little bit that I've got a few bits and pieces for this, because obviously I do want to try to get it working, even though if everything gets used up it's doubled the price, which is a bit of a shame, but these things happen. Right, so the bits that I've got is rubber bands from DataServe for the tape deck. I bought some Z80 chips. These are actually Z80A chips to replace that one if that one's blown. Now obviously I've bought things that I may or may not need, mainly because I have an MSX, I have an Amstrad 6128 Plus, and they use Z80s as well. Now it doesn't matter that I bought Z80As because this is just a stock Z80, because the Z80As or Z80Bs go faster, but that they're actually controlled by the clock, so it doesn't matter, they'll be able to underclock if you're thinking about it that way. But obviously you can't really overclock a normal Z80 to go up to the speeds of what's needed for a Z80A or a Z80B. And again, it's one of those weird things of, it was actually cheaper to get 2 Z80As than it was to buy 1 Z80. Don't ask me why, but it was. Memory wise, now I said at the very start, I believe it's maybe memory that's a problem. There's 16 of them on the +2. Now I've got some sockets. I may or may not use them, but they were cheap enough to grab some, because it sort of comes down to how many I think I might have to replace, because if it's going to be just the one I might not bother, but if it's going to be 2 or 3 or even a whole 8 of them or something like that, then I'm going to use them. 8 memory chips, they came in packs of 8. They were kind of costly, but because they're sort of becoming rare now, I think. I'm not too sure, but all I've done is purchased off of people off of eBay mainly. Obviously there's 16 of them here. Hopefully not all 16 have gone pop. We've got a recap kit, which is obviously for the motherboard and for the tape deck, because it says tape there. This was bought from Petroleum, and one of the better places on the internet to find stuff like this already set out for you for the Spectrum. Obviously I could have bought each cap and everything myself individually, but at least I know the ones that I need and good ones are actually there, and there's also a diagram in that little packet on where they should actually live, because they're all over the place, as you can see. And what else have we got? We've got some Eproms that I purchased to replace the ROM. I've already got an Eprom flasher, and it's possible to get the free diagnostic ROM on the internet. That's 16K. I've purchased 27C 512s, but you can buy the 128s or the 256s, because obviously that's just the K for the Eproms. But they weren't already flashed, they're blank. But you can, if you haven't got a flasher, you can buy an Eprom with a diagnostic already put on it, and I'm sure if you ask the person who's selling it to make sure that they've got the latest version on, they'll do that for you. Then what we've got is some thermal glue. Now you might be asking, why do I need thermal glue for? Well, the power regulator. Now the power regulator I've actually got from my friend RetroTech Ralph. He has recently done some videos on how to fix this, and so's Jan Beta. Both of them is who I've turned to find out the information that I might need to get, and also the website that I mentioned earlier on. So he came around with some memory chips and the power regulator, because he said that it probably is just some memory that's gone, and you can sort of piggyback the chips across the back, and that should maybe get it going again. Now he wasn't too sure if the chips were blown or not. They shouldn't be, but you know, things happen. But there's also a replacement power regulator. Now the chips, I did try to rest them across, but for whatever reason it didn't bring it back into life again. You know, so I did like one at a time all the way across, and then put one and move it across, and then 3, move it across, and it just didn't seem to do anything. So sadly, I think maybe there's something wrong with the capacitors. Hopefully I haven't blown his memory chips. If I have, then I'm more than willing to, you know, the ones that I don't need, I'll give to him. The other side of it though, of course, was the thermal glue that I was on about. Now plenty of people use thermal paste that you would use for like putting in your PC. That's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but because I'd already bought the recap kit, I bought the thermal glue because that's basically what's already used. So I was going to use that again. I might even use it on the back of the heatsink over here. But that's it, I think, for the PC. Oh no, it's not, not it. I've also bought some resistors. I've forgotten the value of them right this minute. I'll put the description for them in the in the bottom of the description. Dear me, there's so much for that, because there's a mod that you can do to the RGB socket, because basically not all LCD TVs like the signal that comes out of this +2. Now you saw a capture that the OSC captures, and that's fine, that works, but the TV that I've got here, it does not like it at all. It tries to give a picture but doesn't. So I've purchased that and put that in. Now, looking from other people's videos, as I said, Retrotech Ralph or Leanne Beta, there's some transistors on here. There's 3 of them. I've forgotten which ones that they are. The silk screening for them is the wrong way around. So I'm going to have to figure out which 3 those are and switch them around as well. So let's get started, really, because basically I've got to undo all the screws, which is 6 of them. There's the other one hiding there, and then, you know, get all the desoldering gear out, because I've only got so much space here. It's like I've already got this amount of space. So I'll get all that sorted out and we'll start desoldering everything. Right, so I've taken the screws out. I just want to show you for this bit, for the power regulator bit, undo the plug, pull out the plug, hold the plug, and this bit comes away. Now you need to remember to plug this in if you're going to test it outside of the case and everything. It needs to be there, because obviously it's the power regulator. So we'll just put that to the side for now. Not near a magnet, probably not the best thing for it, but let's remove the board, see how much dust bunnies are underneath the board. Oh, it's all stabby underneath, all the bit of fluff and dust and everything all floating around. Not that much underneath, but there's whatever that is over there. Right, so let's put the board down. Right, first things first I'm going to do before I start desoldering stuff is cleaning it up a bit. It obviously needs a bit of cleaning, because this is, I don't know how much it's picking up on the camera, but this is very dusty around here. It's basically grey. So is this chip. I mean, that one looks very black to me. That one looks very black, but that looks grey. It's got so much dust on it. We'll have a look of how well I can bring it all up. I'm not doing a fantastic job about cleaning it just now. I just want to get rid of floaty around bit of dust, and obviously, and you know, near where I'm going to have to solder for the caps and things, I want them to be nice and clean. So let's get on with cleaning. Right, so I've got my Q-tips, things you're not supposed to stick in your ear, and then got some of this stuff as well. Now the way that I like to do it, is figure out which way the spray bit is and put some in the Q-tip lid, because after all it's alcohol and it just not need loads, but it will eventually evaporate anyway, so it won't get all the Q-tips wet when I'm putting the lid back on again when it's all dried off. So let's have a quick look at cleaning this chip. I mean, already, yeah, look at that. Already that's looking a lot better. As I said, I'm not looking for squeaky clean right this minute. I'm just looking to bring things up a bit, not so there isn't an awful lot of nastiness all over the place. Whoa, just look at the difference of that instantly. Might have to re-tin them later on. They're a bit oxidized. Not too badly. They don't really look like they've been used too much either. You can often tell, but not too bad. Let's go over that again. Yeah. Right, I'm not going to bore you while I do all of this, but just to show you like what it can, the difference it can make just going over a chip a few times with a bit of good old IPA. See, muck's still coming off of that one. But as I say, I'm not going to bore you showing all of it. I'm just going to give it a quick clean down, not anything fantastic. It's just so that when I do come to soldering the caps back on, especially on the underside, I want it to be clean. Doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. That looks a bit strange down there. Is there a cap there? No, it's this thing here. But, yeah, it looks a bit not so great round there, so I might just give that a bit of a reflow when I sort that one out. What's here on this one? Because that one looks a bit dull as well. It's another one of them. Maybe it's just that's how they get soldered in there. Like a variable resistor, I think. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't look like this has been back for repair at any point. Just having a quick look. Wondering if any of the memory's burnt out, but you can see that's looking kind of dark there. So's that one. So's that one. So's that one. So maybe something's gone drastically wrong there. But as I say, I'm going to mess around, clean it up a little bit, and then we're going to get on with doing some desoldering, which is basically all I'm going to do is pull the caps out, which is in the instructions on which ones to do anyway. Okay, just to make sure I haven't wrecked it more than it already is, I've put the power regulator back in, RGB. I'm going to put some power in. Don't really want to touch anything now because there is power going in. It's not an awful lot of power, but I still don't want to fry anything more than it already is. Let's have a look as we click across. Still messed up signal, right? So let's unplug the power, turn off the OSSC, pull the plug on this RGB, right, and then we can also pull the plug on the power regulator. So we really do need to get on with doing some desoldering now. So let's find out where all the caps are and let's get on with it. Okay, I've got a bit giddy and gone across too much out here. Basically at this point here it's for C68. You've got to check if it's 100 microfarads or 220 microfarads. I went a bit giddy and crossed everything out. There is actually a C5 that's 220 microfarads. So just cross out the particular one that you need for the C68. It's either 100 or 220. That's this one here, and you can just read off on the side of it on which one it is, just so that you don't get a bit giddy like I've done. Anyway, so I've written it down again, so it's there. There's a map here of where all the particular values have to go, so you don't need to note it yourself. It does give you an idea where to start looking on the board as well for them. It's a bit obvious where they are, but at least when you're putting it back, it lets you know which pin is actually the positive side, something you've got to be very aware of. And then we can get on with doing that now. So let's do that. Right, so I'm now going to turn on my desoldering station. Sadly, it's a bit on the noisy side, like, well, they all are. But for me, my mic is like not too far away from where the hum is of it. So I'm not going to show you the desoldering of everything. I'm just going to do like the first one, which I'm going to pick on is this one, just so that you get to see on the way that I like to do it. I'm going to turn it on, and it should warm up to about 350 degrees Celsius, which is about 662 or something in Fahrenheit. So anyway, I'll come back when it's warmed up. Fine, it's warmed up to 350 degrees now. Now, one thing to find these sort of things, sometimes it's easier to find what you've got to do by the corresponding stuff around it. So in this case, we've got a chip here, and so on the right hand side, let's count up how many legs it is, or how many pins it is to actually get to this point of the cap. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish, somewhere in between, and there's that in between it as well. So as we flip over, of course, that means we need to count towards itself now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-ish. There's that thing there. So it must be that one and that one. That must be the top pin. That one, so we need to remember those two. Yeah, those two there. Now, what I like to do is rest it on, so rest it over the pin, and I'll be silent for a bit there, but trying to concentrate on what I'm doing. Now, one thing I do find is that after you think you've sucked the solder out of the way, is to carry on pulling the trigger even after you believe you've done it. The problem is that these have been done as through holes, so they're not. It may well be that I have to actually come back and solder all these up to give them some fresh solder to help them pop out. So, I believe I've done that now. It seems to be wiggling around. Move it back over and it should just pop out. There we go. I put all the old stuff in that bit there. So I'm just going to mess around now and carry on doing exactly the same as I was before. But as I say, when you're desoldering, you should end up with that quite noisy sound. And then when you believe you've got rid of the solder, carry on pulling and then move away and carry on sucking for a little bit and then let go of the trigger, because otherwise what will happen is that the solder will stay in the barrel instead of moving up to, well, if it was a real gun, of where the bullets would be. So you've got to get it to go all the way up here, and if you just suck a little bit and then stop, it may well be that it's just got to there and not all the way up into the chamber. Anyway, as I say, I'm going to carry on getting rid of all the caps and I'll come back when they're all done. One thing as well is do what I say, not what I do. I forgot. Put some flux down over the different cap areas as well. What you're desoldering, it will make life easier. So, there we go. Oh, after that little bit of a headache of that humming away, I have finally managed to take all the caps out. You can see them all hiding there. Yeah, it's easy enough actually when you've got a machine like this. And if you haven't got one of these and you want to start doing desoldering, I mean, even if it's just going to be like a couple of motherboards over your lifetime, get yourself one. It's well worth the money instead of messing around with braid and those sucker things that pop. I realise people swear blind them, but look how nice and neat that is from just doing it with one of these things. I'm not showing off that I've got one of these, I just highly recommend one. I've done desoldering and soldering for a while, but I'm no expert, not pretending that I am. But even for a novice, getting yourself a decent soldering iron and a decent desoldering station is well worth the money, believe me. Now, obviously I've been using flux all over this thing, so the best thing I can do now is to give this a good clean. So I'm gonna get the wife's toothbrush and get some of this on and brush it all down. Obviously I'm not using my wife's toothbrush, but using a toothbrush that's dedicated for cleaning this stuff off. So I'll be back when I've done that. Okay, so you can see that I've cleaned it off on this side for the flux, and I've cleaned it a bit more on this side since I've got the toothbrush going. Okay, so let's get on with soldering the caps in. You can just about see them there in all the many different makes, and we need to start off with the top left. No better place to start really. Top left, C81, it happens to be a 22 microfarad, and that's what we have here. So let's hook them up, get one out, close them back up again because we don't want to lose them. Now if you wanted to, you could mess around and maybe stick them all in all at once and, you know, have all the legs flaring all over the place. That's up to you, but I'm going to do one by one just to make sure I'm sticking them in the right place. Now it does say on the little map here that the positive sign is at the bottom. If you get the little dots at the side, that's my drawings, but within the side the circles of the map it does say positive, you know, the plus sign, and that compares to what it actually says on the board. I kind of would go by this map because there is known mistakes on here already with other things. So let's do this. It happens to be that the short one is negative and the long leg is the positive. You can sort of help yourself remembering that long leg is positively long. That's the little thing that I got taught when I did electronics oh so many years ago. As you can tell, I never really took up on that course, even though I got an alright grade. Now that's that in there, and we turn it over. Let's tighten this up a little bit. It's become a little bit loose, and as always things are coming out of shot. There we go. It's hiding here. You can maybe, can I zoom in? Maybe. But the problem I have is that the zooming only happens in the center, and I haven't really got a lot of space to be doing everything. Maybe if I turn it sideways on, we can maybe see. Here we are. There you go. You can see that I've bent them just out of the way a little bit. I am going to have to do it this way. So let's zoom back out again. There we go. Let's get it so that it's wanting to stay still instead of bouncing all over the place. There we go, we can see it at the bottom of the corner. I realise it's all the way down here, but I've got no much choice using it on this board and trying to keep it in shot of the camera. So we've got my solder, which is the stuff that does have lead in it. I don't recommend lead-free solder, especially on these older boards. So try to get you the best. First things first, of course, as always, I always forget, as always, is get some flux on here, just a little bit. You don't need loads. And the two spots that's there. And there's already flux in the solder anyway, but it's always best to put a little bit more on. This particular solder is 0.3 of a millimeter. And then the soldering iron is up to 351 Celsius, or which is 662 Fahrenheit or something like that. So close enough is alright. Feed a bit of solder on. Warm up the area first, feed the solder in. I think that maybe needs a little bit more. There we go. And I've got a solder joint. And that is as simple as it is. Then what you can do is get your snips. So you need to get rid of the legs that are on here. Now hold on to the leg, because otherwise it will want to fire off somewhere, and that might be your eye, or your, you know, find something sharp and jab yourself in the toe later on. So hold on to them. You can always dump them with the rest of the rubbish that you have, but hold on to them. And that is what I would say is an okay solder. It looks good, it's shiny. Right, so I have actually soldered them all in place. For those eagle-eyed ones among you, you'll notice from earlier in the video I had forgotten to remove this one and this one. Quite annoying. Tiredness, blame it on that, but it's a good job of double checking what I was doing. So anyway, they've been put in the correct places. I do want to point out this, where is it now? Here. No, it's actually these two caps. Basically the join between them should be, that's the bottom cap and then that's the top cap. But basically they are so close together. Be very, very careful when it comes to snipping the legs. It could be that they end up joining. I'm saying that because that's what happened to me. I was sort of like snip, 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 and actually it caused the connection. So I had to, well, basically solder them in again, just a little bit. So be careful of that when you're doing it. and there's a potential of it happening with these two over here as well. These ones aren't so bad because they're horizontal in connection, not vertical, but these ones could cause a problem if you're not careful. Right, so now that's that done, I shall give this a bit of a spritz. Not too much, don't want to put loads and loads and loads everywhere. And just give it a rub around to remove all the flux. And I know that the flux that I use actually says no clean, but even so it does seem to leave a bit of a residue behind. And also make sure that yours hasn't expired, because they do expire. But apart from that, I think I'm done with this bit. So what I'm going to do is end the video really. I'm going to have to sort out the power regulator, and I'm also going to have to mess around and flash the diagram, and I'm also very likely going to have to change some of the memory chips, but that's going to happen in the next episode. So until then, have a look in the description for everything that I mentioned early on. Have a look for Discord links, have a look for Patreon links. It'd be really nice if we could pick some more of them up. And as always though, make sure that you click the subscribe button and that you've pressed the like and also the notification bell, and so that it's always going to tell you that I've sent out a new episode, because obviously if you followed this to the very end, you're going to want to watch episode 2. So until then, as always, happy gaming.